I grew up eating my grandmother's pumpkin soup. I loved it so much. When I went to university in Queensland, I used to ring her and get her to recite the recipe to me over the phone. Now this has been tweaked a little bit. We're adding a few little flourishes that my grandmother definitely would not have put in her pumpkin soup, but I think mine's pretty good too. For something so home cooked and hearty, there is quite a bit of learning that can be done when you make a soup. So a few little techniques that we'll go through. Firstly, I'm going to chop my onions. And the first technique is this. Anytime you're cooking a soup, and a lot of people will do this, they'll roughly chop it, they'll chop it into big chunks, but the smaller you can cut it, the better off you're going to be. So slices, really thin slices like this, or dice it really, really finely is the best way to go. The more surface area you can expose to heat, the quicker the vegetable will cook. So that's the general rule. If you've got a mandolin at home, do the same on a mandolin, but it's a good way to practice your knife skills as well. So you can see with the pumpkin, I've grated the pumpkin. Again, more surface area, it means the pumpkin will cook quicker. And the reason you want it to cook quicker is because the quicker it cooks, the less flavour you're losing into the atmosphere. I used to love going to my grandmother's house and you walk into the front door and you could smell pumpkin soup in her kitchen. But that meant all the flavour of the pumpkin soup was in the kitchen and not in the soup. We don't want that to happen. So we've got our thinly sliced onion, and that's, you want it, those two slices there, you want it really, really thin. The thinner you can get it, the better off you're going to be. So we'll put our pot on, throw in a good knob of butter, and then our onion can go in with that butter. I'm going to saute that down. General rule for making a soup, you want it to be made, done, blitzed on the kitchen table, ready to eat in 25 minutes. Any longer than that and you're starting to lose flavour from the soup. So onions go in. I'm going to cook them down for about 5 minutes, just until they start to soften a little bit, and then our pumpkin goes in, same thing, cook that down for about 5 minutes. Our pumpkin's been cooking away for about 5 minutes, and you can see how if I push down with the spatula, the pumpkin's breaking up, so it's really, really soft, which means we can move on to our next bit. You can pick it up with your fingers, and if you squeeze it, it'll all break apart. So we've got a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, which I'm going to pop in. I'll just cook that out a little bit. Balsamic and pumpkin, great combination. And then in on top of that, I'm going to add a couple of cups of milk. And that's going to be our stock. Now you could add vegetable stock or chicken stock if you wanted to, and then have a little bit of cream at the end. That's got about 5 minutes to go before it's blitzable, and we're going to end up with our soup. I'm going to throw in just a little sprig of rosemary. Let that do its thing for 5 more minutes and then we'll blitz it up. You can see it's almost there now. You could almost blitz it, but I just want 5 more minutes to make sure that onion is nice and soft. So I'll turn the temperature right down and just let it do its thing. Now to go with that, I'm going to make a little crumb to go on top. So in here, I'm going to chop some hazelnuts. So about 2 tablespoons of hazelnuts, which will quickly blitz up. Once we get them chopped up into a little rough chop, I'm going to throw in with it some sourdough, which we've chopped as well. Pop that in. A little bit of the lemon infused oil. And a teaspoon of our Keen's curry powder, just to give it some spice. So pop that in, 1.5 teaspoons of that. And then same thing, blitz that up to make our crumb. That's our crumb done. So that can go straight into, we've got a little fry pan, which I'll get some heat on. Pop that in there, and we'll just cook that out until it's nice and toasty. And that'll be our crumb and our texture and pretty much our seasoning that goes on top. I haven't put any salt in here yet. I'm gonna season this crumb once it starts to toast up. 5 minutes to go on the soup and then we'll blitz that. We'll have our crumb to go on top, and then we can compare my soup to my nan's. Just gonna finish that off with a little bit of grated Parmesan over the top. That's definitely got a lot more going on than my nan's. pumpkin soup would have. Pick a couple of little pieces of parsley just to place on top. And that is my version of my nan's pumpkin soup. Now I did say I would try it and compare. That looks so pretty, I'm not going to touch that one. We'll go into the pot. It is divine. It's nowhere near as good as my nan's. It was never going to be as good as my nan's. So many memories of mine built on my nan's pumpkin soup, but it's a pretty good second place, I reckon. If you've made pumpkin soup at home and you love pumpkin soup, give this one a try. It's a little bit different. The balsamic in there gives it a nice sweetness, and that crumb adds a little bit extra. Give it a go. Let me know what you think. Tell me if you think it's as good as your nan's.